Part 4, character building. Character building is central to the work of Gerit Grimm and Brendan Tang. Rather than building fictional characters, both Grimm and Tang are engaged in building their own character. They accomplish this through charming and thoughtful explorations of their own identities. Gerit Grimm grew up in the former Democratic Republic of Germany. Her early experiences of Western culture were filtered through the lens of American movies. Inspired by the fantasy of these movies, as well as history, mythology, and her own experiences living, working, and traveling around the United States, Grimm creates figurative sculptures and large-scale ceramic and cardboard installations. Cardboard and ceramic become interchangeable elements within her flat, multi-layered constructions. They play with one's perceptions, much like the 3D films in a movie theater near you. Grimm, who has traveled across the United States multiple times and seen more of this country than a majority of Americans, always has a unique and delightful point of view on her adopted country. While living in Florida, Grimm was struck by the proliferation of souvenir shops on the beach. So, she created one of her own, supplying it with kitsch memorabilia inspired by her surroundings. For this exhibition, I asked Grimm to create a California version of her souvenir booth. In On Longing, Susan Stewart describes the content of the souvenir this way, quote, "We might say that this capacity of objects to serve as traces of authentic experiences is in fact exemplified by the souvenir. The souvenir distinguishes experiences. We do not need or desire souvenirs of events that are repeatable. Rather, we need and desire souvenirs of events that are reportable, events whose materiality has escaped us, events that thereby exist only through the invention of narrative. Through narrative, the souvenir substitutes a context of perpetual consumption for its context of origin. It represents not the lived experience of the maker, but the secondhand experience of its possessor-owner," end quote. Grimm strategically subverts Stewart's notion of the souvenir, because Grimm's souvenirs, as well as her sculptures, are not meant to remind the viewer or consumer of a place or experience, but to remind that place of her. Ultimately, these pieces are Grimm leaving her mark, projecting or reporting her experiences, her desires, and her fantasies onto a willing and eager public. Grimm is the screenwriter of her own silly and tender mythology. Stripped bare, her folksy, nude figurines act as extensions of herself. Trapped between her upbringing in Germany and her adult life in the United States, these surrogates search for meaning in the mundane and the mythological, expressing Grimm's desire to stand out, not as German or American, but as someone unique, a desire we can all appreciate.